Bene, buongiorno, mi sentite? Inizia.
Hello, good afternoon. So, a small symposium now at a glance, sight and vision in the arts. First of all, I'd like to thank MIDO and its chairman Vitalone, the general director Galimberto and vice director Gini for their support. Vision Plus is an association belonging to Rotary districts, and it deals with prevention on site, on the field. But not only that, also support for the people in need with visual impairment. And our association works also abroad with hospitals, surgical missions, and medical missions as well. In the future, our association will also deal with innovation. What we do today is innovation, the culture of health, a new way of providing services with the involvement not only of Rotary members, but also the entire population and the authorities. For this reason, we have organized this small symposium today at a glance, Sight and Vision in the Arts, coordinated and moderated by Elisabetta Parente, who is also the moderator of the exhibition, which is exhibited next to the OTTICLUB here at MIDO, and he will also, which will be also moderated by Giacometti. Well, our curator is a teacher in fine arts and cartoons, and just let me introduce her. She has recently worked at an exhibition displayed in Milan and many other things. But let me explain to you why we have involved her in this challenge. Elisabetta often participates in my Rotary Club, and she teaches arts, but her ingenuousness and her cross-cutting skills with which she approaches the world of art, she is really a great personality. So I asked her to to hold a speech about the combination between visual diseases and the world of art. She knows that we are in a scientific setting. We talk about art, but in a specific framework. And this is a challenge that she accepted. And I would like to thank her, but after her lecture, I will be more than happy to see the exhibition. Thank you, Elisabetta. I thank you, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to thank Professor Spinelli and Vision Plus. As my friend Franco said, Vision Plus wanted me to be involved in this project, and I really accepted this project to provide assistance in the eye field. I'm not an expert in the field, as you heard. I'm not an expert in this field. I'm not a physician. I'm not an eye doctor. I'm not a scientist. With my utmost pleasure, I'm an art historian, a contemporary art historian. When I was offered the opportunity to work on the topic of eyes, I saw the opportunity to pursue a project of mine that has been very dear to me. That is to try and highlight the ability of art to have things be seen. And so the project was born at a glance. Sight and Vision in the Arts. This is the title of this exhibition. Let me focus this conversation on the project. The project stems from two basic principles. First of all, a paradox. We live in an epoch characterized by images. Now more than ever, we are bombarded by works, reproductions, historical pictures, advertising pictures. The population, however, cannot read these images. You can hardly find people who are able to decode an image or simply realize what message the image, the picture is conveying to us, to our eyes. And this is paradoxical because we live in the era, in an epoch of images, and we seem as if we were blind or deaf. And another important element that can be seen in the exhibition, and that is the reason why I chose those 15 works of art, is a bit more subtle. You often mix see with look up. You mix up vision with the ability of having the vision, having a deeper vision. Vision is the sensible act of looking at a thing. I don't know, well, simply defining the dimensions of the space surrounding us. Seeing things is something different. To see means combining the sensitive act of looking at a thing with the ability of having feelings, of feeling emotions, of feeling shocked, appalled, and art has this great exceptional ability. The journey I'd like to take you with is the journey of the exhibition, and this is a path that you can go through in order to explain and in order to have this combination. Let me show you these pictures. As you will see in the exhibitions, I have decided to focus on a specific subject, which is the iconographic subject of the portrait. And why a portrait? Because portraits have the sight, the gaze, the eyes as the main elements. Well, you will find this picture by Courbet in the exhibition as well. Eyes are the mirror of the soul, and in art history, you hardly, you always find artists taking this challenge through the eyes, through the gaze. They have tried to tell about the soul of these people. The artist, Courbet, is able to focus our attention on the eyes, but not only through this widely open eyes. The eyes of this person are open and towards the viewers. But look at the light that emphasizes the details, the shirt, but also this composition surrounding the face, the arms surrounding the eyes in a circle. And this allows eyes to be the main reference point.
What can we say about self-portrait? self-portrait of Van Gogh. Van Gogh is the artist that perhaps more than any other made self-portraits, and through self-portraits he narrated every phase of his life. This is one of the most famous self-portraits of Van Gogh. It was painted in a difficult period of his life in Arles, when he imagined about a possible atelier with other artists that should have given life to a typical southern atelier. This desire was not fulfilled, and the artist, was committed self-injury and cutting part of his ear. This proves the pain of the artist. It's not represented by the cut ear, but the pain that you can see in such eyes. It was stated by Leonardo. Leonardo said the eyes are the mirror of the soul. Such down slanting eyes from red to orange in the background, it's highly explanatory of the pain this man was suffering, huge pain. This is a work of art that is not present in the exhibition. The artist is not so famous. Lorenzo Viani is his name, from Leghorn. Unlucky man, he died in 1937, and this work of art is pastel on cardboard. He used original support, and the title is The Blind Musician. Consider how the artist succeeded through the choice of the technique pastel on cardboard, so that the support is speaking support, but especially through the color left by pastel on paper. You have two impressions, not one. First of all, we know from the title that the musician is blind, and blindness creates a filter for reality, and this painting gives you the idea of a diaphragm between the figure and reality. But we know from the title that this man is a musician, and music spreads through the air in the form of waves, and the violin, almost forgotten next to the man has no eyes, has no sight, there's no vision. It expands and it reproduces the impression of the musical wave. I always repeat in my teaching activity to my students that artists speak through light, color and shapes. When very young Miro, in the 20s, in the period of his particularism, he was studying Japanese art, when he created this portrait of a girl dating back to 1921, it's obvious that he couldn't, he is not speaking, the artist is not speaking. The language of the artist is shape and form and color. And what does the artist do? It makes them explicit. A portrait of the girl in the forefront. He details the contours of it, and you have a brown background. Consider what Kandinsky expressed. Color has a resonance in the soul. Brown is a muted color that has no shine, and so the dark background doesn't swallow the girl but puts her forward, and she wears a light blue dress. And don't forget about it, it's the color of freedom, it's the color of harmony, it's the color of the ability to use fantasy and consider the color of the eyes of the girl. Not iris and pupils, but the sclera. It has the same color as the dress. It's light blue,
Persone
sky blue. You don't know people having this type of color in this section of the eye, but the painter uses it because he knows that it's the color of freedom, fantasy, and it's a girl that smiles with her eyes. The artist couldn't express it in words, but he expressed it through colors. In the exhibition you find this work of art by Nicola Samoré. The title is Pittura. We get into the second part of the exhibition devoted to going behind the scenes. Nicola Samoré is a young artist in his 40s and is gaining international attention and is a surprising artist. This young artist is accustomed to reproducing, just like classic painters, works of art and especially paintings in the Renaissance fashion. The title is Pittura in this case because the woman represented here she turns toward the observer, and in her hand she keeps a fountain pen, but then the artist creates a relationship with what is below. And the artist strips the flesh off. I have the iconic representation, but at the same time, vanitas. Beauty is not eternal. It gets worn out. It is fleshed off. And with this technique, this artist, and it was an exhibition in Bologna, organized in Bologna, and the title was Sfregi. And scars, scratches, gash. And in this exceptional short circuit that you see here, what produces what connects me to the work of art? The fact that the artist is no longer satisfied at showing the face of things. The question is, when does this procedure originate? When, for the first time, artists start what I often write in books to take a look at the other side, this procedure, this curiosity toward what is behind the scenes starts in the 20s, 30s of the 19th century. This work by Honoré Daumier and is not so well known. The title is Spettatori a Teatro, Spectators at the Theatre. Why is the painter showing us the theatre through spectators? I look at this work of art. You have a pastel of brown, warm colors with a curvilinear trait, but at the same time animated. And if you allow me, I realize that life is somewhere else. All of such spectators are watching into another direction, what happens on the stage. And this lesson is a fundamental lesson. And it is so revolutionary that today we don't realize it because it's part of our present. I don't know if you've noticed it. There was a photographer in the room, and first of all, he took pictures of speakers. Then he moved, he went to the side and took pictures of you. And who did it for the first time? Demier and for sure, Toulouse-Lautrec. This work, the title of this work is Il palco a teatro. The box at the theater. He was passionate of Parisian life back then. He lived every aspect of it, from horse racing to theaters to Brussels. We know that he got into the theater, and where there was the possibility to move the chair, he gave his back to the stage and he looked at people. He looked at people sitting there. Why? Because this woman, and take a look at this woman with this hat and upward pointing nose, and she's affected, and she's more important than life on the stage. It's a representation for which rehearsal was made. This is instead real life. This is life flowing, and it's revolutionary that artists could devote their attention to this. That's the reason why at the exhibition my critical texts that accompany the 15 reproductions I specifically devoted attention to the title. And next to this work by Degas, the title is the orchestra of the Opera in Paris. The title I gave was and is To Be Inside. That's how the point of view of art has changed. Not what happens in the stage, but to be in the action. And I always say it to my students in this case, where are you? In front of such a work of art, the question is not whether you like it or not. I do not accept it as a response, but wondering why and where the eye of the spectator is. I am inside. In the pit of the orchestra. It's pleasant painting, and however there was exceptional revolution. This work of art, as you see it, it's original. It's not me cutting the head of the dancers, but Degas shows you what happens on the stage. But of such poor dancers, we see part of the legs, part of the body. We don't see the head. We don't see the most important part of the body. Why this? Because the painter, and that's the power of art, the painter is telling you, beware. Art that up until some decades before, art had the possibility to just represent the big of the earth, kings, saints, emperors, starting from the age of Impressionists, Baudelaire. Art can represent the humble grandiosity of daily life. You see that at this point, the work of art puts you inside the action. Does it end here? No. I imagine that many were astonished that in an exhibition whose title is At a Glance, where the protagonist is the gaze, and some way our eyes, we have such a sculpture It's a work by Arturo Martini. We know him for what you find in our court of in Milan, where he speaks about Italy in the 20s and 30s. Arturo Martini made a set of small-sized sculptures. This is part of the Gianferrari collection, small-sized and terracotta, earthenware, humble material. And this work of art, and I gave it my title in my critical interpretation, channeling the elsewhere. The title is The Stars. Two female figures, one leaning on the other, and in their posture, with the face gazing upwards, they show us what is not there, because through their posture and their gaze, inevitably I raise my eyes to the sky. That's the magic of art. Channeling the elsewhere, the artist, when it's a big artist, obviously, the artist has the ability to, in a way, bring to the surface what you don't have in the work itself. And the title of this work is The Stars. I have the ability, in this specific case, to see the sky that is not present in this work, and it's a sculpture. It was stated perfectly well by Paul Klee. Art does not reproduce what is visible, but makes visible what is not always visible. Well, this is one of the big skills of art, not just to produce beauty. I do not believe that beauty will save the world. Awareness will save the world. And in the realm of awareness, you have it all, the ability to go beyond beauty, and the ability especially to sense and manage the ability to see, enhancing our sight in terms of depth, and it was stated perfectly well by Klee. The question we should ask ourselves, and a question, and we get to the third section of the exhibition, the question we should ask ourselves is as follows, and the work of art. I like to say that artists in all times, and if you went to the exhibition, we start with Bosch and it gets to Magritte. In every place, everywhere, every time, artists had the ability to give voice to the invisible, to amaze us. And how? And for sure, the most spectacular way was the ability to change the point of view, the perspective. Dali. And in this case, you have the famous farce. And if you're here, you're interested in the art, crucifixions. How many crucifixions have you seen in your life? This artist plays on the other vision. And Cristo es curto, when Mantegna proposes the cross, and the dead Christ starting from the feet, and having in the forefront those ones, and then a small format, the masterpiece in Brera, and hence the skill of the artists. Here you have a double point of view in this case. the cross seen from the top. And here the question is as follows: who could have seen it like this? That's the point of view of God the Father. And Dali had such a big ego, and he was the only one to imagine Christ seen from this perspective, because he felt on a par with God, and perhaps he was helped in this. And however, and I'd like to stress it, we shouldn't just consider this point of view. If you go down with your eyes, you find this landscape just like the day after surrealist landscape. If you take a closer look, the artist proposes this marine landscape from a front view. I astonish you with a view from the top, but I rotate the vision, and there's some sort of detachment, and I have to be amazed in front of its crucifixion. And however, the artist can amaze me with an unusual point of view, unprecedented point of view.
And this is one of the most exemplary works of art that I often offer to my students. Well, this work of art by Tiziano Vecellio dates back to 1847, and Cardinal Arquinto is painted here. Well, unfortunately, the story of this personality helped him. He comes from the Veneto region, but the cardinal dies before coming to Rome and before his office is recognized. So Tiziano, what does he do? After portraying him in the usual position of a cardinal, puts a curtain before his face. And this is really intriguing. As a viewer, I should ask myself the following question: how can it be possible? How comes that by hiding something, I can catch the attention of the viewers in such an evident way? Hence, we have a new aspect, another aspect, which is typical of art and of artists. Artists realized how hiding can trigger curiosity. I could say that, well, this is one of my last efforts. I could easily tell you that I've taken a picture of a painting that I will show in a future exhibition. But this would be a lie, because even though we may look at this painting and say, well, this is a portrait. It is packaged like the works of art that were delivered yesterday. Here they were all packaged like this, and this is one of these paintings. But this is not the case. This is a real, a real work of art by a very young Krzysztof Jakowicz, and he made hiding his main feature for portraying and telling things. It is really upsetting that you cannot see the face of the woman behind the packaging. So you would say, okay, let's unpackage, let's remove the packaging. But again, Krzysztof Jakowicz here, I realize that when unveiling is less evident, I'm able to see the picture behind the film. Well, we are all relatively old, and we all know that behind this foil there is Brigitte Bardot. So we realize that hiding things somehow leads to a greater degree of attention vis-à-vis the object which is being hidden, which is hidden to me because there is something hiding this. And so the process of denying things is very similar to giving something. Gifts, presents are usually hidden because there is a pleasure in removing the paper, in removing the wrapping, and the same applies to hiding the fact that I cannot recognize. And that's the reason why I chose this image. Those who are very good at deciphering images may have already looked at the surroundings. This is Christoph Javachev. In 1970, he created one of his wrappings on one of the most renowned squares to us, because we are, and let's unveil it, we are in Piazza del Duomo in Milan. And this was the work of wrapping the monument to Vittorio Emanuele. So what is the idea behind this act, and why this act? And well, this was his success, and this is an intelligent act. It's a very deep act. When I hide something, I somehow catch the attention of the people who look at that, and this is an intrinsic value in contemporary art. When Picasso said, in order to perform the Cubist resolution, he had to decompose the face of a woman. And he described this process because he had to really revolutionize something. If he had decomposed a bottle of water, he would have failed. But in doing so, the next time a viewer would look at a face, he would have immediately recognized it. And this is the final outcome. That's the idea behind these works of art. Next time we go to Piazza del Duomo, we not only enjoy the beautiful view of the dome of the cathedral, which is always beautiful despite of the weather, we would certainly look at this monument because otherwise nobody would ever stop and stare at this monument. And that's the idea of hiding in order to unveil. Almost at the end of the exhibition, you find this installation by artist Silvia Pisani. Incidentally, let me tell you that in the exhibition there are 3 works of art of contemporary artists: Nicola Savori, Silvia Pisani, and my friend Ivo Minazzo. I'd like to thank them also on behalf of Vision Plus, because these 3 artists, knowing about the importance of the Vision Plus projects, allowed us to use their works of art without copyright, and so I'd like to thank them for this beautiful gesture. And I'm always very moved and very excited when I have to present an important artist like Silvia Pisani. This luminous vortex, this vortex of life, how was it created? Let me show you the process of creating the installation. Silvia is so great that she allowed me to take a picture of her while working in order to have people see how this installation was created. The installation is some meters large, and the artist created it through thousands of used lenses, of expired lenses, and through these old lenses she created the design of a bright vortex, starting from darker colors. There is no drawing underneath. The installation changes its shape over and over again, and so it was also physically very straining to create this spiral. And this spiral becomes bright as soon as it is created, and it is really very special. And in the end, you reach this final effect. Here you see the artist in front of her exhibition after hours of efforts, and behind her one of her paintings on canvas. And why is this works of art so fascinating? Well, this is the ability of art to generate a short circuit. When I show the work of art the way you will see it in the exhibition in the room, you immediately perceive something liquid, something airy, lightweight, that can fluctuate in the air. But only through the previous pictures we realize that the installation is made on the ground. It is created on the humble soil. Well, the poetry behind Silvia Pisani's works of art lies on her ability to establish a dialogue between the earth and the sky, a dialogue between what is humble and what is celestial, heavenly, aerial. This is really an exceptional work of art. In conclusion, I'd like to show you a work that you may not know, which is this one. Do you know it? Good. Are you sure? A few seconds ago, I showed you a perfect reproduction of Mona Lisa, a work painted by one of the greatest masters of the Renaissance, Leonardo da Vinci. It is exhibited at Louvre. It is 60 by 80 centimeters only, and it is undoubtedly the most famous portrait all over the world of a lady, which is the mostly renowned lady in the world, made by one of the 5 best artists in the world. You smiled when I said, well, you may not know it, but let's make a test. Well, let me be more kind. Is she wearing a veil on her hair? And from that veil in the central part, is there a pearl hanging? Some people are saying yes and nodding, some others are saying no. Well, behind the famous posture that was reproduced thousands of times, can you see the balustrade? Because she's sitting on a terrace, as we were taught at school. Can you see the balustrade? Can you see that it's a typical Renaissance terrace, a balustrade? And what about the landscape? Behind her, on the left-hand side, there's a bridge. Are we sure that there's only one bridge, or are there 2 bridges? Okay, so usually now a debate starts. No, just one bridge. No, 2 bridges on the left. No, one on the right and one on the left. So again, what are we talking about? First of all, we are saying that, and this is what I was saying in the beginning, looking at things doesn't mean knowing things, and knowing things doesn't mean seeing things. If we, by seeing, mean the ability to have emotions, to feel emotions. The vulgarization, the popularity of a work of art leads us to see nothing at all. Well, when I showed you this work, I said, okay, and you may have thought, okay, it doesn't matter, this is the Mona Lisa. At university exams, I stopped doing this because to put my students at ease, you usually ask students the same questions. What do you see in terms of iconography? Is this a historical subject? It is an iconography? So the usual question is, what is this? And the easiest answer would be, it's a portrait. I could hardly get this answer from my students, because they used to say, this is Mona Lisa, but this is not the question. The question was, what are we talking about? What is this? So if it had been any other portrait of a lady, of a juggler, of a man, they would have said it's a portrait. In this case, no, they say it's Mona Lisa, and this is our inability to see things. This is the first aspect. And then second aspect, and I will conclude on that. But today, is it still possible to say something new on this portrait? Look, 28 hours ago, the latest theory was published about the bridge behind this lady. So a lot of ink was used to write about this woman. She's well known, reproduced, and so on and so forth. But let me ask you one last question. Is it still possible today to be surprised, to be astonished, to propose something artistically new on this lady? The answer is yes. We can. Yes, it is. Gerald Gluck, a German, born in 1944, a cartoonist, an illustrator, an image creator. Some years ago, he created, well, it's a painting, but I call it a picture of today's times. The title, One Day in the Life of Mona Lisa. So, what are we talking about? We are saying that the history of art, when works are produced that are able to astonish, to impress, to generate emotions, well, they usually generate a mere change of the viewpoint. That is not who is Mona Lisa, but rather what is she looking at? What is in front of her eyes? And I think this work of art is really impressive and really great in describing what is going on. Well, apart from the typical attitudes, well, the mobile phone well, but this is not the case. It's a very simple idea, but really ingenious. And I think this picture is ingenious, and I always show it whenever possible, because I like to think that the next time we, with our eyes, with our gaze, look at Mona Lisa again, we will smile, thinking that she's also looking at us. And so maybe she, with her beautiful eyes and her beautiful smile, her eyes are smiling too. She is looking at us too, and she's also smiling as we are smiling. In conclusion, and at the end of this journey, I hope I was able to convey the message that our friends, the eye doctors, are more than welcome, because they have to help us keep our vision healthy, but also thanks to the art that can really trigger our life and our vision the way it should be. Thank you very much. Thank you. And in conclusion, our Vice President, Claudio Perdomi.
Curiosissimo quello che abbiamo ascoltato, sicuramente.
Well, Well, what we have heard has been extremely interesting, and we are certainly much richer. The next time we are in front of a picture, we will be embarrassed because we don't know where to look at. So thank you very much to the audience. Just let me spend a couple of words on our project, the CIBE. And that's the reason for asking me, though, for support, and also to the other sponsors. And OCIBE is a project that we conceived in Vision Plus about 12 or 13 years ago. There was, and there is still, a small hospital 300 kilometers north from Antananarivo, and to this hospital, we have progressively added everything which is needed for vision. We equipped an eye clinic, and then through Vision Group, we managed to create an optics lab, and then we trained an optician in Madagascar so that he can manufacture spectacles. We have created an operating room with disposable tools and a disposable armamentarium from the Western world. And before the pandemic, we used to organize 2-yearly missions, or a medical mission in spring in order to help potential surgery patients, and a surgical mission in August in order to restore vision to 200 people on average pro mission, pro campaign. We are very proud of what we have achieved so far, but as the son of migrants born in Peru and traveling a lot in Africa when I was a travel agent, it is very disappointing to see projects that start and that can hardly be pursued. In the world of financial support to non-governmental organizations, well, you usually manage to buy objects, for example, a jeep or the armamentarium, the equipment, but what you can hardly finance and fund is the daily continuative management of a project. In Guinea, I saw, for example, a beautiful hydraulic project made by the Germans and then abandoned, a $10 million project, because the inhabitants there didn't have the money to implement it. So the reason why we are here today is that is because we can hardly raise the resources for allowing the management of our project. On average, we manufacture about 300 spectacles per month, and we produce we manufacture these spectacles for people who, in a developing country like Madagascar, wouldn't have the chance of working without spectacles. But we also have another project, again in Nasibe, a very ambitious and innovative project. Thanks to Giulio Landelli's efforts and to Claudio Tonini's work, we managed to define a project schedule in order to guarantee continuous assistance to our hospital through telemedicine. Telemedicine has become a very hot topic in the field of medicine, and this would allow us to improve our service in Andasibe and to offer it to other non-governmental organizations with similar facilities in the developing world. So don't forget Vision Plus. Remember Vision Plus. We are very serious people. We all work on a voluntary basis. Our structure is a very lean structure, and everything we can raise allows us to restore vision to the people who go to our hospital in Nasibe. Thank you very much. So thank you to Elisabetta, and thank you to the audience.
Facciamo uguale.
Direi di sì, anche con i tempi direi che sono giusti poi. Va bene.
Preparami dove.